Hello friends, a big loving welcome to our very own channel, Ammu&You. I love narrating stories and I'm sure there won't be anyone who does not like listening to stories, whatever age it may be. Today, I have a very touching story to narrate, a story from an amazing author, Ruskin Bond. And the name of the story is The Tiger in the Tunnel. It's a lovely story of a common man. It is so touching, a story of courage and of the trials and tribulations of the ordinary men who live simple lives but run several risks so that others may be safe. It is also a story of continuity that threads through the lives of the poor people. Here it is symbolized by the axe which Baldeo's father left him and which he leaves behind for his son. There was nothing to be afraid of. He knew how to use it. What a lovely sentence for a story to end. So now I begin the story, The Tiger in the Tunnel by Ruskin Bond. Tembu, the boy, opened his eyes in the dark and wondered if his father was ready to leave the hut on his nightly errand. There was no moon that night, and the deathly stillness of the surrounding jungle was broken only occasionally by the shrill cry of the cicada. Sometimes there came a hollow hammering of some woodpecker that was carried along on the faint breeze, or the grunt of a wild boar who may be digging up a favorite root. Baldeo, the watchman, was awake. He was responsible for signaling the train that came to the tunnel. It was a station, a railway station, actually a small shack backed by heavy jungle. And the station was in name only, for trains only stopped there for a few seconds before entering the deep cutting that led to the tunnel. Baldeo was responsible to see if the tunnel was clear of obstruction. At night, it was his duty to see that the lamp was burning and that the overland mail passed through safely. "Shall I come too, father?" asked Tembu sleepily, still lying huddled in a corner of the hut. "No, it is cold tonight. Do not get up." Tembu, who was 12, did not always sleep with his father at the station, for he helped in the home where his mother and his little sister lived. It was a small tribal village on the outskirts of the forest, about 3 miles from that station. Their small rice fields did not provide them with more than a bare living, and Baldeo, after a lot of efforts, found this job of a khalasi at the small shack of a station and considered himself lucky to have done so. Drowsily, Baldeo groped for his lamp, then fumbled about in search of matches. He left the hut, closed the door behind him, and went on his way. Tembu had already fallen asleep again. The eeriness of the place was increased by the neighboring hills which overhung the main line. He had heard many tales of the famous tunnel tiger, a man-eater, who was supposed to frequent the spot. He had not seen him yet, though, in the 1 month of his work. There had, of course, been panthers, and only a few days ago, the villagers had killed one with their spears and axes. Baldeo walked confidently. For being a tribal himself, he was used to the jungle and his ways. He always carried an axe with him. It was given to him by his father, who had got it from his forefathers. The small axe looked fragile, but was deadly when in use. The axe was a part of himself. And wherever he went, be it to the local market 7 miles away or to a tribal dance, the axe was always in his hand. The cutting curved sharply, and in the darkness, the black entrance to the tunnel loomed up menacingly. The signal light had gone out. Baldeo set to work to hold the lamp down by its chain. If the oil had finished, he would have to return to the hut for more. The mail train was due in just 5 minutes. He fumbled for his matches again. Suddenly, he stood still and listened. The frightened cry of a barking deer, followed by a crashing sound in the undergrowth, made Baldeo hurry. There was still a little oil in the lamp. He, after an instant's hesitation, lit the lamp again and hoisted it back into position. The train was late. Sitting huddled up, almost dozing, he soon forgot his surroundings and began to nod. Back in the hut, the trembling of the ground told of the approach of the train, and a low, distant rumble woke the boy, who sat up. "Father, it's time to light the lamp," he mumbled. He was wide awake now, waiting for the train to pass, waiting for his father's returning footsteps. A low grunt resounded from the top of the cutting. In a second, Baldeo was awake, all his senses alert. Only a tiger could emit such a sound. There was no shelter for Baldeo, but he grasped his axe firmly and tensed his body, trying to make out the direction from which the animal was approaching. Then a thump and the rattle of a small stone falling announced that the tiger had sprung into the cutting. Before a minute had barely passed, he could make out the huge body of the tiger, trotting steadily towards him. Its eyes shone a brilliant green in the light from the signal lamp. Flight was useless. Baldeo stood with his axe, motionless, staring at the great brute moving rapidly towards him. The tiger, used to the ways of men, came on fearlessly and with a quick run and a snarl, struck out with its right paw, expecting to bowl over the puny man who dared stand in the way. Baldeo, however, was ready. With a marvelously agile leap, he avoided the paw and brought his axe down on the animal's shoulder. The tiger gave out a roar. Again, Baldeo drove his axe with true aim, but to his horror, the beast swerved, and the axe caught the tiger on the shoulder, almost severing the leg. To make matters worse, the axe remained stuck in the bone, and Baldeo was left without a weapon. The tiger, roaring with pain, now sprang upon Baldeo, bringing him down and then tearing at his broken body. It was all over in a few minutes. Baldeo was conscious only of a searing pain down his back, and then there was blackness, and the night closed in on him forever. The tiger drew off and sat down, licking his wounded leg, roaring every now and then with agony. He did not notice the faint rumble that shook the earth, followed by the distant puffing of an engine steadily climbing. The overland mail was approaching. Through the trees beyond the cutting, as the train advanced, the glow of the furnace could be seen, and showers of sparks fell like Diwali lights over the forest. As the train entered the cutting, the engine whistled once, loud and piercingly. The tiger raised his head, then slowly got to his feet. He found himself trapped like the man. Flight along the cutting was impossible. He entered the tunnel, running as fast as his wounded leg would carry him. And then, with a roar and a shower of sparks, the train entered the yawning tunnel. The noise in the confined space was deafening. But when the train came out into the open on the other side, silence returned once more to the forest and to the tunnel. At the next station, the driver slowed down and stopped his train to water the engine. He got down to stretch his legs and decided to examine the headlamps. He received the surprise of his life, for just above the cowcatcher lay the major portion of the tiger, cut in half by the engine. There was considerable excitement and conjecture at the station, but back at the cutting, there was no sound except for the sobs of the boy as he sat down beside the body of his father. He sat there for a long time, unafraid of the darkness, guarding the body of his father from jackals and hyenas, until the first faint light of dawn brought with it the arrival of the relief watchman. Tembu and his sister and mother were plunged in grief for 2 whole days, but life had to go on. and the living had to remain, and all the responsibility fell now on 12-year-old Tembu. 3 nights later, he was at the cutting, lighting the signal lamp for the overland mail. He sat down in the darkness to wait for the train and sang softly to himself. There was nothing to be afraid of. His father had killed the tiger. The forest guards were pleased, and besides, he had the axe with him, his father's axe, and he knew how to use it. Tembu, his mother, and Tembu's little sister could not even grieve for the lost family member, head of the family, for long. This is the life of a common man. Life has to go on for him or her. And little Tembu, just a mere boy of 12 years, takes over the responsibility of the family his father had left behind. And he did it so courageously. The belief in his father and the axe that was now his, that he got from his father, was enough for him to be ready to face any danger. Wasn't it a lovely story? I'm sure you liked it. Please like, share, subscribe, and press the bell icon. Then you will get all the information of this channel, Ammu&You. Thank you so very much for listening to the story and watching the video. I will come soon again with another selected story just for you. Bye-bye till then.